Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today I am going to be talking about Venus in Scorpio, and this brings me to potentially a new topic or series that I'm going to uncover or unpack, looking at Venus in your chart. If you are new to astrology or new to the occult or spirituality and you've just walked through the door, hello. A lot of these videos probably will make absolutely no sense to you, but you might get something out of them. And I will give you a quick rundown so you're not kind of like bewildered and going, what the hell is he talking about? What the F is he on about? What's going on here? So when people mostly talk about astrology, they talk about your sun sign, which is obviously the most common one we go by. It's the position of where the sun was when you were born at the time of your birth. Your moon is your inner world. So your moon sign is who you really are. Your sun sign is your outer world. It's how the world sees you and interacts with you and how you interact with it. It's a play on both. We are both. And your Venus is very, very important. To me, it's probably more important than your rising. Your rising sign is also your ascending. So rising and ascending are the same. And that's the lens that you see the world through, the position of where you are in the cosmos, in life, in the universe. And your Venus is your interdependent ability to connect, which is why we're actually here. We're here to love. Crazy saying that in such times where we've got record levels of divorce and people are standing in front of an altar and they like the performative element of getting married and appearing to look a certain way on social media. And then a few years later, 3, 4 to 8 years later, usually it's a 7-year, 6-year mark after infidelities and lying and cheating and all of the rest of the fuckery that people tend to put themselves through, it ends up in a divorce court. And I'm going to be blunt with you and just say, and you're probably going, why is that? Well, society's changing. What we want in relationships is changing. What we want in life is changing. Culture changes us. We change culture. Frank Herbert was right. The day shapes us, but we shape the day. It is a merging of both. So that's a little bit on explaining Venus. When I look at someone's chart, the first thing I go for is Moon and Venus. These are the two big ones for me. When someone's chart's on my desk or when I'm looking at it, whether they do a screenshot through astrocalculator.com, this is the one. And I'm going to get really personal here with you because the reason why I wanted to do this podcast today quickly and get to the bottom of this as much as I can with as much articulate accuracy as I can is because my Venus is in Scorpio. And I don't give my chart away just to anyone, but there's a lot of fire. I'm a triple fire sign right on the cusp of Scorpio with a Sag and a lot of Aries in there as well. So there's a lot of fire and intensity. And then to have my Venus in Scorpio, it is, some might say scary. I have heard that before. I don't know how I feel about the word scary. I think you kind of have to find people that can really just receive you as you are. And if they're prepared to get to know the real you, not the you that we show each other, that they won't be scared. But maybe you'll learn something from what I'm about to tell you about this, because, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the more vulnerable that I can get, maybe the more vulnerable others will be if they hear me talk. And it's really important that we just show the truth, the real thing of who we are. So if you're new to astrology, Scorpio is about emerging energy, and it is the eighth sign associated with power, death, sex, infatuation, transformation, intensity, and the process of like individuality we go through all of these shifts. Venus in Scorpio, speaking personally, is about a release of tension. It's building up of energy, and then that release shifts or it explodes, and then it changes something about you. They're saying the little death, when you build up, in sex, the brain shuts off. And it's like when you orgasm, it is a moment of death. That's as close as you get to death when you are in a state of orgasm, the release of something. And I think that I've come to understand a big part of my own suffering comes from trying to find someone to merge with on a level that I feel is equal to me. I think a lot of if I was like in a relationship, I'd be calm and very focused on my partner, because it's kind of like I'm a traditionalist a little bit in that way. I think that it would be kind of not the romanticism of it, but it would be like it's us against the world. We've signed a contract together where we've made a commitment to each other, and we're building a life together. We're building, if we can build a family together, and we share everything together, and we build this really strong base that is equal, where I'm not like having to do the lion's share of the heavy lifting of everything. Although I am an initiator, and I've discovered that about myself, I'm definitely not a sub. I'm not a subservient partner. But I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I'm going to go on to the placement of what Scorpio is, Venus in Scorpio. Let's look at it. I mean, first of all, I've never come across a sign. If you are just a Scorpio in general, hello. I know a lot of Scorpions listen to me. I feel like probably more Scorpios subscribe to my channel, So I do appreciate that you follow me. You guys are not the one to fuck around with. Scorpios are so complex, much like the Gemini. There's always something like bubbling away in the cauldron of the Scorpio's psyche that we never share with anyone. You're kind of very private, very internal. And I often find myself with my Venus in Scorpio looking back at unequated love and just beating the shit out of myself for it. Playing over and over and over in my head. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough for that person? Did I drive them away? Was I too much for that person? Was it all just a game? This is the thing that the Scorpios really struggle with, is if they've let you in and let their walls down and thought that they could trust you, and then you show a different side to your character or you abandon them, it wounds them. It wounds me to such a deep level where, like 8 years later, I'm still waking up in the night crying. That's the level of depth that a Venus and Scorpio can have. That is the level of depth that a Scorpio can have. And that's why their stinger is so nasty, because underneath the stinger is hurt. It's why they're can be so, like, Scorpios, and I've got a couple of Scorpios in my life, they can be so incredibly vicious. And that's a very strong power to wield. Very, very strong power to wield. They have the power to destroy and the power to heal. I was doing readings back in the day when I was doing healings and massages and learning a lot about the occult and learning a lot about myself through other people, because we're all kind of mirroring each other. Maybe you're learning a lot about yourself through my channel, my podcast, and me talking. I think humans we're hungry for stories. We are very programmed to want a story, because an aspect of someone else is like mirrored back to us, and then we see an aspect of our story in them and they see a story in us. And I think we're kind of hardwired. Even now, like listening to my voice, it's like you're programmed. We are programmed to hear the cadence in my voice or your voice. So it's like we can understand what this person is saying and just listen. This is very deep, by the way. It is also very scorpionic. A lot of Scorpions have heart conditions. I've noticed a lot of them have a very irregular heartbeat. There is a condition that comes up around Scorpios called Ringetta syndrome that I have noticed from my studies. It's one of the rarest forms of disorders that you'll see, where their heartbeat it's an irregular heartbeat that can kind of stop at any moment. And a lot of them could just keel over and die at any second. And they have to take medication. And also a lot of Scorpions have to have a defibrillator attached to their body, so that when they die, when their natural heart stops beating on its own, and this could happen at any moment, by the way, that the electrical current will go through the heart and it will restart their heart to kind of keep them going and keep the body percolating, kind of like a defibrillator thing. You know, this comes up a lot around Scorpio. And I was thinking about that the other day, and that idea of me meeting so many clients with that condition that are Scorpios, and then looking at my Venus in Scorpio. And I think that the play on death with the Scorpio in Greece, it was said the people that studied Pluto the most were the most vivacious. They had the most zest for life, because at any moment they were happy to look at death in the eye and be like, well, then what am I here for? If I'm going to live, I need to make this life count, right? I need to make it deep, right? It's got to be all or nothing. So there's a really exciting energy around that. And, you know, knowing that your heart could stop at any second. So it's like, what are you doing here that means something? Do something that means something. And that's why Scorpios are so intense and possessive with their careers, with meetings, with people. They're very overbearing, a lot of them. The darker side of Scorpio, I've done a video on the darker side of Scorpios. You know, they're a fucking nightmare to deal with. And one thing you'll learn about the Scorpion Same with me, and I have to look at that Venus side of me as well, is that what you get with a Scorpion, what do you get for free with a Scorpion? Nothing. Nothing is what you get for free with this sign. Okay, nothing. They'll keep you safe from everything but them. When they become the problem, that's when you're in big trouble, because it's very difficult to get out of a bond with a Scorpion, because these guys are looking for a mate for life. And that's ultimately what I want too. So having a Venus in Scorpio is, in this placement, it's really kind of a double-edged sword. It's either that amazing high, like on drugs, of floating in this euphoria of, when is he going to call me? When is he going to be with me? When is he going to see me again? I can't wait to see him again. It's that state that Pisces wants to get to. I think it kind of ties into the play of, because Pisces and Scorpio are quite, they've got a lot in common in that way, but yeah, like that. I won't say, well, I've said it before, Pisces, a lot of Pisces do porn or fans only, but Scorpio capitalizes on that, and they're the ones usually filming it. But it's a high that we're looking for, a deep love that makes you feel safe. I once asked a Scorpio woman, what would make you feel safe? And she said something that also resonated with me that I'd said before, and I've said it to some friends of mine as well, and it might be a little bit shocking to you. She said that she wanted to date a man that knows how to kill and destroy another human being with their bare hands, with as little as effort as possible. And it resonated with me because what she was really saying is that she is attracted to power. Scorpio's Venus in Scorpio is attracted to power. Power makes them feel safe. They're drawn to it and they want it. And that's where my placement comes through. It's like a moth to a flame. And chasing a psychological state of higher existence, to me, is amazing. Being in a kind of fascinated state with someone, as I have been, this psychological state is like mesmerizing. It's riveting. It makes you feel alive. It makes you feel something. But then if that's not reciprocated, or if someone's playing with you, by the way, that's why they call it playing, because they're playing with you. They're a player because they're playing with you, yeah? This is very dangerous when you play around with a Venus and Scorpio. I do not recommend it. You will get the other end of the double-edged sword. And then you get hurt, and then you go, what do I do with this pain? Can I release it? Can I transmute it? Or does the Scorpio stinger kind of come in backwards and you kind of poison yourself through the sadness and the loss and the pain of not having it reciprocated, or having someone just use you as a toy? And we live in an age of objectification these days. It's absolutely terrifying. Twitter is becoming the new porno hub now, if you haven't noticed. And that's what it is. Objectification is turning someone into an object. And if this becomes normal, then we don't get heart connections. We just get more suffering and trauma bonding. But that's another video for another time. Yeah, so years ago I had a woman and she came in and told me that in a reading, and I was very interested in that because it's like the obsession that you get when you're into someone, when your Venus is in Scorpio, is basically kind of like suffering. It's a suffering. And it's a suffering that may drive us to change something within ourselves, or destroy ourselves because we can't handle that level of pain. And in astrology, we know that the scorpion is associated with the phoenix, which is the bird that, goes through the process. It rises up through the ashes to spread her wings, and then she burns and dies and rebirths herself again as a new version of herself. And one of the things that I don't really think people understand about the concept of the phoenix is that, how do I word it? Scratching my head. In order to have a rebirth, you have to die to something first. Everyone wants the rebirth part, but no one wants to die to their old self first. And as we're supposed to go through life, the best analogy I could give you, if you're listening, is we are all upgrading. We should all be upgrading like a mobile phone, like your Android device or your iPhone or smartphone, whatever. Every time there is a new update available, you update that version of your phone, and then the old version becomes obsolete because the new version has overrode the old version. That is what we are supposed to be doing, whether you're aware of it or not. By the way, not being aware of it, to me, it's like it's like playing poker in the dark. If you're not aware that that's what you're supposed to do, and if you're not facilitating that, then you will facilitate the atrophication of yourself and others. I mentioned that in my last video before in the reflective chat part 2, is that if you are not actually evolving, you're actually either growing or you're dying. There's no between. So waiting is dying, moving is living on any level, okay? So Venus in Scorpio is a very powerful placement to have, and it is all about personal power. It is about sexual power. And in terms when it comes to the divine feminine, there is nothing more powerful than a woman in the feminine that is able to own her sexual power and transmute that into personal power. And there's a fountain of energy that lays within her that she's aware of. And that's the water element. It's a really beautiful thing to see. I have seen it a few times. And it's juicy, and it's a flow of energy that comes out through Scorpio that is just so beautiful. I've seen it with a few people, mostly women. And I'm not talking about sex addicts, and I'm not talking about prostitutes or nuns, because that a lot of Venus and Scorpio energy can go either way, whether it's suppressed and controlled, which, by the way, never works, or whether it's kind of addicted, so it's kind of turned sex into a high that they're chasing. These days, a lot of people are living through that. They're just kind of scrolling through their phone, looking at porn, looking for the next high. And that controls their mind, it controls their body. A lot of BDSM comes in through the Scorpion. It's all wrapped up in power exchanges. So either the taking of power or the giving away of power, kind of like on a silver platter to someone. Power is persuasive. And that's what it brings into the world. When I think of Venus and Scorpio, I think of black holes sucking stars inside of them. I think of explosions of like space and time. I think in terms of style, I mean black, the color black, it's very elegant. And it's a play on light and shadow, much like myself, I guess. It's elegant, it's strong, it's sophisticated, it's intelligent, it's powerful. It has a very powerful presence. And I think that play a lot. If you're listening to this video and you have a Venus placement in this chart in the Scorpion, let me know what you think about your feelings on it. And then there's the darker side to it, which I was saying before, which is most things in life are a play of power. And we don't realize that everyone kind of has a master to report to, whether it's your boss, whether it's your family member, whether you're living under someone else's roof. We really own nothing. I said that to a client once that came to my house, and he was telling me, he was a Leo. He was telling me how much money he makes and how important he is, and how he's so busy that he couldn't go to pick up his new car. So we had to send his assistant because he fired his old assistant because she was incompetent, and just a total fucking narcissist. And I said to him, stop. And he looked at me and I said, you don't own anything. And he looked at me with this kind of really baffled look on his face, as in what? I'm like, you don't own anything. You don't own your house. The government owns your house. You just own the deed to the property title. It's a piece of paper somewhere in a drawer or on some kind of recorded electrical device. We own nothing. It's all an illusion. You're so caught up in illusion, you've lost yourself. If the government wants your house, they will take it. Tennis court, highway. We assert illusion over ourselves to others to confirm that we have power. But it's an illusion, especially when it comes to materiality. You can't make someone love you by doing something or buying them something. That's not real love. And it shook him because he knew that I was right. Like I've said before, everything you own will be landfill. So the only thing that really matters is the connections that we form with each other. That's what we're here for. And Scorpios know that. If you've ever been witness to a Scorpio meltdown, it is incredibly scary. Much like the Taurus meltdown, they probably have to feel that they're safe around your presence to do that. Like you've got to be a low threat to them for them to explode. But the intensity that is required is that Venus and Scorpios, we need to pair with someone probably a little bit lighter in nature to us because we're so heavy, and then we feel really isolated because we can't get that deep connection. It's like a boat kind of coming into port and it can't find the right placement for it to go in, and that's very frustrating, and it feels very like how long is this kind of level of disappointment going to go on for? And then there's the grotesque part of the Venus in this placement is that, and I'm going to get graphic here, is probably the act of destroying someone else's body. This happens a lot in the gay world, which is basically mutilation. The act of reductionism, so reducing someone to a toy or an object. And a lot of gay men think that that's hot. They don't understand. They think gang rape is sexy and it's hot. How many guys can fuck them tonight? When it's actually, there is no power in that. There is no power in fucking someone up the ass. I know that sounds hard to hear, but there isn't. How else would two gay men do it? But I mean, to show their love for each other. But I will talk about that in another video for another time. Probably the dark age of Aquarius, where we disregard function of an organ and then change it to something that we want it to be in our head. But sometimes it doesn't. It can't change the physical world. It's only acceptance of what is. It's actually our resistance to what is that causes us so much trouble. But I will go on about that in another video. I don't know how people are going to handle that level of reality. because it could be quite dangerous to say. But I will, I'm just brushing over that lightly. But yeah, the dark side of the Scorpion is abuse. It is, it's kind of, and it operates on a very low level as well, like an animal in a pen, like a pig, like a dog, very animalistic, very primal. And then in order to do that, it takes out the heart and it takes out the mind. So there's no presence of spirit. It's just turning someone into an object to, discard afterwards and walk out the door, which is very empty. It is very emptying to do it, because afterwards you've got this hollow, empty feeling of like, I just got used. And then you want the next hit to make you feel better, which is the darker side of it. Yeah. So yeah, I know this is getting a little bit heavy, but I'm just sharing some of the truths and secrets of what it's like to be in this placement. Scorpios have very kind of secret affairs going on, always anyway. So I don't want to waste my time going on dates and pleasantries and talking about bullshit. I'd rather sit here and just talk about your childhood trauma so I can find out who you really are. And then if I find out that you don't know and you're not even connected to who you are, it makes you worthless to me. It makes you hopeless to me because I can't connect to you because you're not connected to yourself. And then I get disappointed. It's part of the problem that I have is, when you start to go higher, the distance between you and other becomes further and further away. And then I just speak something that's normal and natural to me, and the other person looks at me like I'm insane. I mean, to me, it's obvious as hell, but they can't see it because they won't see it. They're not able to see it because they're in such a low level of consciousness that they can't see it. And that's okay, but it can't help me grow. That's the problem. It's not, so it's kind of a little bit like the student-teacher relationship where one has something the other wants. One sits higher than the other. That's why the Scorpion is looking for something that is powerful, because it can help facilitate expansion and make them feel safe. That's what we want. That's what we're going for in terms of a partner. Not just like this kind of foot in, foot out kind of thing. It's got to be both feet in all the way. Vows, marriage, deep connection, celebratory kind of thinking comes into play with this Venus positioning. It just does. So I think all of this, I hope this is a lot to unpack, and I hope that it makes sense. If you have a placement in this chart, in your chart, then maybe you've related to what I've talked about. But for me, it's very hard, and I struggle with it a lot, a real lot. It's a real problem for me having this placement, because I can go back and relive people that hurt me or ghosted me, or played with me, and trying to understand something that that's still there that I don't understand, and that's the mystery that keeps me hanging around. Well, I will leave it here. This has been a pretty heavy chat, and I hope that you've enjoyed the video or the podcast. If you'd like to leave a comment below, please leave a comment below. Please don't be afraid. I'm trying to get to the comments and I want to read them, because hopefully someone brings something to me that I don't know, and then I'm like, oh yes, I can learn something too. So I'm kind of getting something out of it as well, not just divulging this level of information into the ether, into a public platform. So I hope that you're having a really good week, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I will be continuing the cold, hard truth of Aquarius, but I think I'm going to do that in a two-parter maybe, where I just unpack Aquarius as the sign, and then talk about the age of Aquarius, which is what we're in now with technology and where it's all going in this epoch. That will be in the next video. But today I just felt compelled to share some of this with you. So Lots of love. Please subscribe. Please share my channel around to anyone that might be interested in this level of conversation. Ask me a question. If you have any questions, please, you can email them into info@thealgoliathtarotdeck.com. You can DM me on Instagram. It's just Algoliath Tarot Deck, and I will get to your question. Lots of love. Okay, bye.